Internet, and welcome to episode 286 of the Comic Watchers Show. I'm your host, Matt. Not with me yet is my co-host, Chad. He's running a slight bit late, but he promises he'll be here. This week, we are talking we are talking with returning guest, Bill Walko. Hello, Bill.
Hello.
And his sidekick, Trevor Mueller, who unfortunately...
The other way around.
Oh, okay. Bill swears up and down he's the sidekick. I guess we're going to determine it over the course of the next hour.
Well, for this show anyway.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough, Bill. I like it. Trevor Mueller is with us, and we are going to be talking about all things Bat Pat. I am excited to have you gentlemen both here this evening, and welcome.
Thank you. Yeah,
thanks.
Absolutely. So, before we get into the world of Bat Pat, so to speak, tell me, share if you would a little bit about yourselves and about your history with comics and how you got into comics and what brought you here today, basically.
Sure. Bill, you want to go first?
I was going to say you go first.
Oh, see, now you're being a gentleman and an artist, and I love Hi, I'm Trevor Mueller. I'm a comic book writer who way back in the day, back in the age-old days of middle school, I was writing and drawing my own comic books, and as my ambitions for storytelling got better, my skills did not improve with my ambitions. So I started to work with artists from around the world to try to make the stories that were in my head a reality and a thing that I could hold in my hands. I primarily do a lot of digital comics, web comics, indie comics, and then I've been working with Papercutz probably the last several years on a number of different projects. The latest one of which we are here to talk about is Bat Pat, because I cut my teeth in the industry kind of working on kids comics. My series Albert the Alien was the first syndicated young reader series on Mark Waid's Thrillbent website. And I nominated for 2 Harvey Awards, not the same year, which was pretty great. And from there, I've just kind of snowballed a career in, telling the stories that I love. And if publishers don't agree, I will usually self-publish them, or I will put them up on the web as well. I also have 2 Webtoon original series, Repossessed and Nexus Point. Those are more for like a teen audience. And then last year, I actually self-published and financed on Kickstarter my first 2 mature readers books. So,
oh wow! Congratulations!
Thank you, appreciate it.
And what were they called?
I did a book called Los Ojos, which was kind of like a supernatural action story. John Wick meets John Constantine about a contract killer who, when he looks people in Los Ojos in the eyes, he doesn't see them as human. He sees them as angels or demons.
Oh, wow.
The other one is Demon City, which is kind of a post-apocalyptic buddy cop story where the literal biblical apocalypse has happened. And the first demon detective's first case is the last homicide that will ever happen because someone has just murdered death. And now no one else can die.
I love that so much. Well, awesome resume. We're going to definitely dive into that a little bit. But first, I want to hear more from you, Bill. What's your resume? What's your background?
Yeah, so I first got into comics because when I visited my grandmother's house, she would have a pile of Archie comics. And so that was like the intro to the comic book world. Must have read those same comics like 100 times. And then that led me to DC and Marvel and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. So got into comics a little over 10 years ago doing a webcomic called The Hero Business. It's about a marketing agency for superheroes because everyone knows with great power comes great marketability.
Sure.
So it was sort of like a superhero sitcom. And that kind of like started my whole comic book career. So then I got tapped to do a story for the New York Times with Brian Michael Bendis. It was a tribute to Stan Lee to serve as his memorial when he passed. Mm-hmm. And through that collaboration, I ended up doing a whole graphic novel with Brian Michael Bendis, a sequel to his Fortune and Glory, graphic novel from, I think, the late 90s.
Yeah.
Only this time it was Fortune and Glory, the musical. And it tells a story about how Brian was tapped to write the ill-fated Spider-Man musical, if you remember, that came out around
Turn Off the Dark.
2010 or so. Yep. So did that graphic novel with Brian through Dark Horse. Then I got the opportunity to do some work with Archie Comics. So kind of like coming full circle, my intro to comics became then the comic books that I ended up working on. love those characters. So doing a bunch of variants for Archie Comics was like awesome. And then these days I've been doing more kids comics related stuff, kind of in the same playing field as Trevor a little bit. And we become kind of buds working and collaborating together on BatPat. And we'd like to collaborate on some future things, and hopefully some publishers will let us. We'll see how that goes. And so doing BatPat, I'm working on another graphic novel for Papercutz. Also did a short story in the recent Flash Gordon Adventures anthology series, which is like a kid version of Flash Gordon and his friends. So I did a short story in that just recently came out as well. So, and continue to do stuff with Archie Comics. So all that stuff's keeping me pretty busy.
Very cool. I love to hear it. So first of all, before I get to our next question, welcome, Chad. Better late than never. And you're looking quite dapper with your hair all combed and your beard all natty.
Yeah. Yeah, I had to get pretty for the show.
And thank you, because I can't carry it all myself.
All the pretty are all the show.
That's right. The camera does not add 10 pounds; it loses 10 pounds.
And Chad, very important.
Or maybe it's 10 years. I'm not sure which. I could stand either way. But so Trevor and Bill, tell us a little bit about BatPat.
Yeah, sure. So BatPat just came out. How am I doing this with the camera? BatPat just came out from Papercutz on October 14th, I think it was, so brand new. It is a young readers series based on a best-selling international series from Italy by the same name, BatPat. And it's a book series, it's an animated series, it's a number of different things. And so Papercutz tapped Bill and I to translate this over into a graphic novel for kids in the U.S. audiences.
Interesting.
I've not done adaptation before, so this is a really fun kind of thing. Because BatPat's big in Europe, but it's not fairly well known over in the States, it was an opportunity to learn about the property that's out there. So the way that I like to kind of describe BatPat is that it's a little bit like Scooby-Doo.
Okay.
About a talking bat instead of a dog. The mysteries that BatPat and his family investigate involve real monsters, but the monsters aren't scary. They need our help with something and don't know how to ask for it.
Oh.
It's super cute. It's really funny. It's out in time for the spooky holidays. So kids who like Scooby-Doo and those types of things, or the 50-year-old kid in your house can also. Papercutz was good enough to release both a nice hardback edition, which is this one right here. It's also available in softcover.
Okay. Chad, do you want to jump in?
Well, I was just going to ask how you guys are doing, because I know you guys have both been on the con trail the past 2 weekends. I know the weekend of New York, Trevor, I think, was doing a Galaxy Con.
St. Louis.
And then I ran into Bill briefly over at the Mad Cave booth at New York Comic Con, and I assume you also did Baltimore.
I did.
Trevor,
Bill?
I didn't do Baltimore. Trevor, did you do Baltimore?
I did. Yeah, I was a guest at Baltimore. I've been a guest at that show for a couple of years now. I love that show. It's less like a comic convention, more like a family reunion. It's seriously my favorite convention of the year.
Yeah. And I think Trevor, I first met you years ago at New York Comic Con when you were doing. Was it Albert? Was it Albert the Alien? Because you guys were. I ran into you and you pulled me over because you had the sign that said, "Let me tell you about my comic books." so did we with Trevor? Did we? I know we've covered it before when we were talking about your Zoo project, but. Did Matt already talk about your history with comic books as both a reader and collector?
I didn't quite phrase it that way, but yeah, we definitely dove into the deep end of the pool.
Okay, cool.
So
So what is it about BatPat that appealed to both of you, or appeals to both of you?
Sure. Well, first thing, paycheck. I'm never gonna say no to getting my bills paid, which is great. Two, the opportunity to work with Papercutz and the amazing editorial team that they have over there has been very, very lovely. I'm working on several unannounced projects with them right now. I want to say Bat Pat was the third or fourth that I wrote for them, and it's the first one to get announced and come out. So that's very exciting. The opportunity to work with Bill was a huge plus in my column there. I was really excited when they told me that he was going to be drawing the thing, and we immediately hit it off. I think so, Bill, at least. Feel free to disagree and be like, nah. And then finally, just the story, right? Like when Adam, our editor, approached me with the story, the pitch, the concept, I was looking at this thing as like, this is right up my alley. I'd just gotten off of, or not just gotten off of, but I made my bread and butter on cute little alien kid stories where it's kind of a fish out of a water situation where Albert is an alien from another planet. He's come to Earth to learn about people. And because he's never been here before, everyday activities get turned into fun and wacky adventures. With Bat Pat, it's really kind of about a town that is just plagued by monsters, but the monsters are misunderstood. They come off as scary, but there's a mystery behind what they're trying to do, why they're trying to do it. And then there's an opportunity for the kids to do problem solving and have agency within their own story. And ultimately end up helping these misunderstood creatures that live in their town with them. And I thought that had strong senses and themes of community. I thought that had strong themes around don't judge a book by its cover. And I thought that had really strong themes of found family and bonding. And all of these things are elements that attract me to a project. And one of the reasons, or several of the reasons, I guess I should say, that I was attracted to doing Bat Pat. Bill, what about you, buddy?
Yeah, so having grown up on Scooby-Doo, I've always been like a huge Scooby-Doo fan. So Bat Pat is kind of Scooby-Doo adjacent, as you can see from the general concept. But what I like is they kind of reinvented that concept, that basic concept. Number one, the monsters being real. Like I always kind of like the fact that the monsters, when they're real, it just makes it a little bit more interesting. So that aspect really kind of appealed to me. And then second, Trevor kind of covered it a little bit. But that message of inclusion, that sort of like somebody might be going through something that you don't know about. So don't be so quick to judge them. Maybe try to understand them. And that's like a theme in every single story. And it's very entertainingly told. It's not preachy. It's not in your face. But kids are going to latch onto that for sure. Because each of these monsters has a thing. They, feel shunned by their peers, or they're just trying to do something and then people are shunning them and they don't understand why. And then the kids in the story help bridge that gap. So having that message to kids, that underlining message to not make fun of people or be scared of them if you don't understand them, but to try to understand where they're coming from and help them, I think is like super important. And that really resonated with me too. That kind of like brought it up another level for me.
Well, one of the things that I like about this as well that makes it a little bit different from Scooby-Doo is the characters all have a role to play and they have agency within their story, right? Like they are actively attempting to either investigate or problem solve. There's not like a Shaggy character that's just kind of along for the ride. There's a character reluctant to get into the adventure a little bit. But there's the outgoing sister. There's the kid who's the big time inventor, and then there's the smart kid who doesn't believe in the supernatural, and every single time ends up getting proven no, the supernatural does exist. And I love what Bill commented on there, and adding on to that a little bit. It's each of these kids has something to contribute to the story. And a way that they can either help investigate or solve the problem that the monsters are facing. Sometimes it is those feelings of inclusion that the monsters may have. Sometimes it's an inability to navigate the world. Like they don't know how to get around, or they're unable to get around because of a condition that they face. And that lack of judgment and also that proactivity around problem solving, I think makes these very strong characters. And then you have Bat Pat in the mix as well, who's there for a lot of slapstick, and he's adding in a lot of comedy elements, and he's got all of these references that are really out there and very funny and silly and goofy, and he just adds a whole new layer of comedy that isn't necessarily seen in like Scooby-Doo, where a lot of the comedy in Scooby-Doo is them yelling, screaming, and running away from the monster until they end up ultimately unmasking the monster at the end. And then it's, old man Reginald with the screwdriver in the set.
Yeah, another aspect of it that I kind of liked, having two sisters of my own, like there's a sibling aspect to it. So the three kid characters are all brothers and sister. So if you have if you grew up with siblings, there's a lot to relate to there, because at the end of the day, they care for each other and they're going to protect each other, but also they get annoyed with each other. They can kind of get frustrated with each other, but they always round about to helping each other and figuring things out together. But I think if you have a brother or sister, you're going to totally recognize the dynamics reading these stories.
100%.
So Trevor, having, I guess, started with Albert the Alien, the younger book, and then you've moved to, your own creator stuff. What you did through Zoop, and a couple of weeks ago wrapped up again on Kickstarter for another version. How is it going from, the kid friendly to something a little more mature, and then back to kid friendly?
No, it's fun. I mean, the mature reader stuff that I did was really like COVID babies for me. Like that was me flexing a new muscle at a time when nobody was going anywhere, nobody was doing anything. And to mix it up and to kind of maintain my own sanity, I just wanted to try something new. My bread and butter has always been on the kid side. My moniker tends to be a song written by Linda Kaplan Thayer back in the day. You guys can all sing it along with me. I don't want to grow up. I'm a Toys R Us kid. And I feel like I very much have that kid in me when it comes to storytelling, when it comes to my interests, when it comes to the passions that drive me out there, and when it comes to the next generation of storyteller that I am interested in inspiring. That said, we're probably going to make sequels to both of the mature readers books that I did, just because there seems to be interest and demand for it. But the opportunity to return back to kids comics was a blessing. It is a fun place to play. The suspension of disbelief for younger readers is significantly higher. You get to tap into, as a writer, I'm sure this is true as an artist, you get to tap into your imagination a lot more, because kids will believe things that adults just sit there and get taken out of the moment from. And I love that opportunity to play, to get to explore my own imagination and my own world around me through the eyes of a younger version of myself. And that opportunity to imbue that story and give that story to that next generation of reader who does not have the same restrictions that an adult tends to put on themselves has just been a lot of fun. And again, this book's been out for about a week now, and I've had a chance to have it with me over at Baltimore. I sold out of it while I was at the show.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And kids just really resonated with it. They really seemed to enjoy the characters, the pitch, the idea that it was monsters but not scary. Like all of these things just really seemed to check the boxes for the readers that I talked to.
So as it being an adaptation of a previous, or a set product, if I'm remembering correctly, it's a European product, not an American, so it's kind of new. Were you guys given any, aside from the usual, parameters to, kind of flesh out the characters, or put a different, or a new but spin on them that is still in line with what others who know about the product would know from them?
Yeah, well, I would say, so they did a really good job of arming me with a lot of background information. They gave me the pitch packets that they had for the series. They gave me character stuff. Not all of that came right at the beginning. I did have to do some internet research, and Google Translate is great at turning Italian into English when it came to just understanding the characters and stuff. But between that and the English spellings that they had on there, editorial and I had to make some decisions, like which spelling of these names do we want to go with? Which spelling of this location do we want to go with, right? So we had to make some calls there. And then because it is a licensed project, right? Like there is an owner of Bat and this property that is not me. not Papercutz, it's not Bill. They have to review all of those materials and they have to go back. And I would say that the notes that Bill and I got, at least what I got on the writing side, were pretty light. In fact, the funniest note that we got, and Bill, I don't want to steal your thunder on this one, I'll let you think what we did. But the funniest note that we got is that Bat-Pat needed to be in it more. And
right.
we were,
Yeah.
But it's your story. And so Bill and I had to kind of problem solve a little bit to be like, all right, well, how do we not fundamentally change what's going on within the story or the roles that the characters are playing, but still try to insert Bat-Pat into it a bit more. And so as an adaptation, again, this is, I think, my first time doing adaptation, I had a blast. And I think, again, some of that comes down to the property. Some of that comes down to the collaborative partners that you work with, like Bill, and the fact that we got a lot of freedom, I think, to play with these characters and in this world. And that is a dream project in my mind. Bill, do you want to talk a little bit about
Yeah, it's interesting the things you discover in doing an adaptation, because we are adapting animated episodes into comic form. So to some extent, that story is already there and even the script is already there. But when you translate it to comics, you find out, or you discover, how many alterations you have to make it a good comic versus a good cartoon. A lot of things could happen very fast in a cartoon. And if you translate that to a comic, it could be 2 pages that we don't have. So you have to sort of make decisions on what are the best gags, what gags are going to translate into comic form. And Trevor had to do some translation in that regard. Like, some of the jokes don't work in comic form. So we twisted them to make them work to the full effect of the medium. So I think we're really, I'll say, pushing the boundaries on making it a true comic book story versus doing just, hey, this is, you don't want it to feel like the screenshot version of the cartoon, right? You want it to feel like a different experience. So even playing around with page layout and things like that, Trevor had mentioned they wanted more Bat-Pat. So there's parts in the episode where sometimes Bat-Pat will have a little stinger reaction to things. So what we discovered is really making that, like, the bottom of the page, this big, like, sort of like circle graphic with, like, Bat-Pat being silly and having his expression, and really letting that live, like really giving that the breathing room to make him a little bit more of like the star of the book. So we had a lot of, I think, fun discoveries in doing this that I think made it exactly that it felt a little more ownable to me and Trevor by adding those flourishes that, again, make the comic medium be all it can be versus making it feel like we're just capturing screen captures and putting word balloons on them.
Well, Bill, you bring up an interesting point too that's unique, I think, to adaptation, because within film you have the benefit of not just motion, but you also have the benefit of sound. And so a lot of the episodes for Bat-Pat would open up silently. But that doesn't translate necessarily well to a comic, and that doesn't necessarily translate well to storytelling within a comic medium. And so it was the thing I went back and forth with very briefly with my editor. How much narration do we want to put into this book to do the setup? How do we want to introduce the characters every single chapter or episode, right? Will this be single issue stories, or will this be a collection? And ultimately they settled on a collection. And there are some episodes have montages in them. And so how do you keep that interesting within a comic book so that it's still funny and silly and retains the themes and the tone and the emotion of what's trying to happen within those scenes, but do that in a silent panel, right? and so that again was a unique challenge. And there were some episodes where there was a lot of action and activity. There were some episodes where there was a lot of dialogue. And we had to figure out, where do we cut? How much flexibility do we have in page count? Can we expand this a little bit more? Do we have to shrink it down because of the length of book that we were trying to make ultimately? And so there were a lot of internal discussions around some of those pieces that never really made it back to the licensor, as far as I'm aware. And again, the licensor did not seem to have any kind of pushback on the changes that we made or the decisions that we made to help enhance that story and make sure that it was the best that it possibly could in a book form versus on your screen.
So, Bill, when it came to taking some of the more humorous passages or gags and adapting them to the page, like how do you as an artist translate that and adapt it? Because a lot of humor that obviously comes out of timing as well, and that's an advantage that an animated medium would have over the page, is they can control the timing, whereas it's kind of all on your shoulders as the artist in that regard. So how did you work around that?
Yeah, I mean, I do have some background in doing humor comics because having grown up with Archie, I have subconsciously studied Archie comics my whole life. So looking at somebody like a Dan DiCarlo and how he does humor and, Harry Lucy and like the classic Archie artists, how they handle those comedic moments is like seared into my brain. It's something I could recall certain panels of Archie comics and how they were handled. So I think even when I did my own web comic, that was primarily a humor comic with some dramatic beats, but mostly humor. I was constantly pulling on, I think, Archie when I was doing it. I even changed my art style to be more of an animated looking art style. I had started out with dreams of maybe being in comics, trying to copy people like George Perez, which there's only one George Perez. So that didn't work out necessarily so well. But I think, you want to also honor the source material. So we do have those episodes, and I watch every single one of them. I look at Trevor's script, I watched again. Sometimes I'll do screen caps of them because the expressions are so perfect, and then I will mimic the expression from the episode. Other times we're hitting a slightly different beat, so those expressions don't work. So I look at Trevor's script, and then I alter the expression to fit what's happening on that panel. So it's a little bit of like, sometimes we're being very close to the source material. Other times we're slightly reinventing it. And again, I always look at it from terms of like, people are buying a comic book. They're not buying a screen capture book. They're not buying a, magazine about the animated series. They're buying a comic. So it should feel like they're reading a comic. If this is some kid's first comic, you want them to be enthralled by the medium of comics and visual storytelling and word balloons and it all coming together. So that comes across in how you're laying out a page, which panels are overlapping with each, showing action by sometimes making the panels not be squares. They're more like diagonals or something. There's all sorts of little visual storytelling tricks that like enhance the experience, especially for young readers.
Yeah, and from a writer's perspective too. I mean, Bill, it sounds like you watched these episodes probably as much as I did, and I drove my wife bonkers watching these episodes. I probably watched each one minimum of 12 times. Just taking notes, trying to figure out the best pieces to kind of use, how to figure out the pacing going in there. If you take something as simple as whenever they show Bat-Pat and his family, they're usually at home first. And in the animated series, that's an exterior establishing shot of the house. Then it's an interior establishing shot of whatever room they are in. Then it's maybe a couple of setup shots that are silent because they're working up to a gag of some kind or an activity the kids are doing. And then it's some kind of action that's going on within the scene. You don't have that luxury in comic books and storytelling, right? We got maybe 2 panels to do those establishing shots, exterior and interior. And do we want to do that every time? And do we need to do that every time? And so these were conversations that we were having, or at least debates that I was even having in my head trying to do it, which what's ultimately going to be in service to the story? What is the reader going to be able to pick on, and how quickly are they going to be able to pick up on what's going on within the scene? And at any point, have we accidentally removed something from this that is going to cause confusion within the reader? Because the reader always needs to know where the characters are. The readers always need to know what the characters are doing. And the reader needs to know what the characters are always trying to do next, right? And that's what's going to keep the piece going. And then within a lot of actions that happen within Bat-Pat, because a lot of it is slapstick comedy, which involves a lot of motion. So how do you maximize the still image of what is going to imbue the most laughter and hilarity out of the moment that's going to be in there, and any build-up or aftermath that also contributes to that humor. So tone was really, really important to that too. The one piece too, I know that we've been focusing a lot on comedy, but I will say that a lot of these stories too are quite sweet. They're very charming and very nice. And there are moments in there that do fill your heart up with love. And hitting those beats too was really, really important. Making sure that those moments of sincerity and caring came through in the storytelling as well. You need these ghosts to at one point be frightening, and then at the next point to be sympathetic.
And it happens quick too. Like they're seemingly terrorizing people, and the next page you feel terrible for them.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like those things, and every single the stories have some of the same beats to them. So yeah, to Trevor's point, getting that across in economy of space. You know, we can't have a scene that plays out for a full minute in animation. We have maybe a page to do that. So we've got to make those choices of what beats to play.
Or a panel.
Right.
Sometimes it's only a panel.
So I mean, the joke that you made, Matt, at the beginning of the podcast, right, was like, you know, who's the sidekick to whom? At the end of the day, the responsibility for the storytelling goes on Bill's shoulders, right? Because like I'm just writing words on a panel, and he's making it look pretty.
He has to interpret it
in my head that doesn't work on paper. And so the other thing that I really credit Papercutz for, and I think this came down to our editor and just Bill and I getting a good ways of working process going, is that when questions would come up or anything like that, we'd have just a quick collaborative session, right? Bill would share his layouts with us or anything like that. And if we had notes, if there were things that we wanted to do, does this match what I was intending in the script? Hey, Bill had to make this change because something didn't make sense in the script or it didn't work as well. Are we cool with that? And so we were very collaborative throughout the entire process of building this. And to me, again, those are the types of dream projects that I want to be involved in, because I know that there are other projects and other publishers out there where it's like, as a writer, you turn in the script, you hand it to the editor, you move on to the next script. You never see any of the other parts of the process along the way. And I really enjoyed that collaboration that we had. And I think that's one of the reasons why Bill and I have bonded the way that we do.
Yeah. Because I would say also like Mad Cave / Papercutz. If people don't know out there, Mad Cave, Papercutz is part of Mad Cave Comics. So they're an up and coming publisher, as y'all have probably seen, but they're also like a really great publisher to work with. To me now, working with them, it's no wonder they're an up and coming publisher, because they really, I think, are good to the creators on their books. They're making really smart choices. They're really on top of marketing. The outreach to the people working on the books in tandem with their marketing efforts has been really impressive to me. I don't know how you feel about it, Trevor, but I'm just been really impressed with the whole process. And our editor, Adam, who's also been great, as Trevor mentioned.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I don't know if you guys know this, because again, I was at Baltimore last weekend and I was at the Ringos, and Mad Cave won a Ringo Award for fan favorite
publisher.
So
awesome. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's not just the creator.
Well earned.
You will see it when I post the winners tomorrow morning.
Yep. It's fans, and again, if the fans aren't loving the books at the end of the day, right, then the publisher can only do so much. And they have created, I think, a really great culture of collaboration over there across all aspects of the publishing process. And again, they're just turning out stellar books, and I'm just so blessed to let them
And if I can give a little sidebar to the story I did for that Flash Gordon Adventures book. The first book, Flash Gordon Adventures, was done by the Oh Yeah Comics guys, Art and Franco, who you guys are probably familiar with. Mm-hmm. Super fun. If you're familiar with their stuff, it's exactly what you expect in all the good, awesome ways. For book 2, they did an anthology, and they basically just invited a bunch of artists and creators to contribute stories, now with the sort of like younger version universe set up by Art and Franco. And they're just like, do you want to do a story? I kind of had a pitch for a story. it was like a very silly kid story, and they totally like just bought off on it. I wrote and drew it. It was very easy approval process. And then when I was doing the signing, Chad, when I saw you in New York Comic Con, we were doing the signing for Flash Gordon Adventures, and I'm flipping through this book, and it's the first time I've seen it in its totality. And the stories are so fun, but they're also varied, but they're also like wacky. Like, I think kids will like love this book when they get it in their hands, even if they don't even know who Flash Gordon is. But I bring it up also because the freedom that they gave creators to come to the table with the type of stories that they want to tell without over policing those stories and letting just the creators let their imaginations run wild. As Trevor was saying earlier, one of the fun things about working on kids properties is letting your imagination run wild and like, you know, seeing where it goes from there. So that's another book, if people enjoy Bat they should check out, is Flash Gordon Adventures. Highly recommend it. And again, it's another sort of Papercutz via Mad Cave production, showing why they've won the fan favorite publisher of the year.
Yeah.
Well, and I had the opportunity to talk with Mark London at New York Comic Con, and I had got to tell him that Mad Cave is one of our favorite publishers because you have stuff for adults, you have stuff for middle ages, and then you have stuff for kids, and it's covering the gamut, and it's all good stuff.
And manga, they've got manga too.
Yeah,
And
that's right, they
manga,
do.
that's right.
And I'm friends with Adam Walenta, the editor, and I know he brings a lot to the table because he's a creator himself. He does Punk Taco, and so he knows what he's doing with characters that are kind of out there.
Yeah, and Adam, I mean, Adam comes with a vision to the table, but the flexibility to let you play and create, and that's one of the things that I love about him. And one of the things I've heard from him back, because again, I'm probably working on, I think 18 books with Papercutz.
Wow.
2-3 years, and a lot of those are from Adam, and the rigor that I bring in reaction to that freedom that they give us, to the ability to play, and to all of the professionalism that they bring to the table, is I give him permission not to worry about any project that I'm assigned to. And he said that to me, right? Like, where if he sits there and he gives me a project, if he knows that he needs to be hands off on it because he's got to focus on other areas for the time, he doesn't have to worry. And with projects like Bat, again, like, it just became old hat, where after we ended up getting into a groove, after we ended up kind of getting that rhythm going on there, like the opportunity to collaborate was always there, but the need for oversight was never there. And that, again, is a beautiful thing that can happen within the creative world.
So when it comes to working at Mad Cave or Papercutz, like, we talk a lot about the advantages and the professional side and all of that good stuff. Are you spoiled in any way? Do you ever want to go to another publisher? Do you need to do another Kickstarter? Are you guys Mad Cavers for life?
Well, I think there'll always be opportunity for self-published books out there. I mean, you're talking to a guy who, I launched my own webcomics back in, college, 2000, 2004, something like that. And then I started self-publishing them. And part of that was for me to learn the process of publishing, to understand what are all the steps that go in there. How do I end up formatting pages? What is DPI and why do I need to know what that thing is, right? Like, as a writer, this was not a thing that was part of my world. And I encourage creators to learn those steps in the process, especially if you're a writer. At least learn lettering, because you have to know how many words can fit into a given
Sure.
panel and still have artwork in there that looks pretty and gets to sing. So I don't think that crowdfunding is ever going to go away as a part of my career. But that said, I've got an open door policy with the editorial team over there, certainly with Adam, where anything I want to pitch, I can pitch. an opportunity for Bill and I to pitch a project together, that's icing on a cake, man. Like, that is a dream project. And yes, the answer is yes. If Bill wants to work together, I will find a thing for us to work on together, whether it gets greenlit over at Papercutz or not.
Yeah, and
So-
just my answer to the same question. Yeah, they've been great to work with, and I'm working on a couple of pitches, and we'll see if they're one of the publishers that bites. But also another publisher might be interested, and then that might lead us in a different path. I also have my own creator-owned things that I still want to explore. The greatest thing about being creator-owned and doing it yourself is that you get to do everything yourself. The worst thing about it is you have to do everything yourself. Yeah. So, so that's part of it too. So like having publishers, to be honest about it too, like you're getting a paycheck coming in, right? Like a regular paycheck. Some of the creative projects, creator-owned things, if you're even like crowdfunding it, you have to figure out what that schedule starts looking like,
Sure.
So do you create it first and then crowdfund it? Do you partially create it and crowdfund it? Do you crowdfund it then create it? If you crowdfund it and create it, there's always a slippery slope that you have to stay on that schedule because you don't want to screw over your backers. We've seen that happen plenty of times. And it's easy to take that money and then see publisher money coming in for projects and then put that on the back burner. So you really have to be honest with yourself, I think, if you're going to be a creator-owned creator that's doing crowdfunding, to make sure that you have the capacity to fulfill those projects. Never mind even the creative want to do it, right? Like people that have crowdfunded things that have fallen off for years not fulfilling it, it's not that they don't have the passion for that project. It's just that life and career has led them in other directions. So I think you just have to figure out your game plan, right? So right now, I'm pretty busy with Papercutz at least through Q1, probably through Q2, possibly beyond that. So
Wow, that's amazing.
I can't think too far beyond that. Now, also keep in mind that, like, right, don't take this the wrong way, Trevor, but writers can work faster than artists. So I get a graphic novel, that's 112 pages. That's a few months of my life. Trevor can, turn things around in a quicker way. Then I can't draw as fast as Trevor can write a page. So,
100% on that, and that's why artists should get paid more than writers.
Right. So yeah. So like right now, like I'd still like to do like some occasional stuff for Archie. That's near and dear to my heart. Would love to continue working with Mad Cave and to have opportunities to work with Trevor. Whether that's through Mad Cave or other people remains to be seen. We can't foretell the future. And then I also would like to get back to my creator-owned stuff at some point. But now at this point, it would be like, okay, that might be 2027. We'll see.
We'll see you again in Bat Pat 2, The Search for More Money. No, no, it's
Electric Boogaloo.
It's similar to what Phil's saying, right? Like, as a writer, I do have the luxury of being able to work faster than an artist does. And that gives me the flexibility to be able to juggle multiple projects at the same time. Some of them are paid projects through a publisher. Some of them I'm financing out of my own pocket. Because to Bill's point about crowdfunding, like, I'm never going to be that guy that gets something crowdfunded and it's not successful or it's not done, right? Like, and it never delivers. If I have a crowdfunding campaign, it's because the project is done. It's ready to go. It's bought and paid for. All I need to do is pay for the printing. I consider an artist cost a sunk cost because that needs to happen in order for the project to happen anyway. And I have a way to make that money back over time. And that can be a whole other podcast that we can talk about from a business and financing perspective. The other thing that I will joke about as well is one of the glorious things about working with a publisher like Papercutz versus having to crowdfund like BatPat is that I don't have to do inventory management. And I don't know if you guys have seen my Instagram video, my TikTok when Demon City showed up, but I had a literal pallet of 2,000 pounds, 1 ton of comic book showed up to my house in boxes that are 40 pounds each. And I had to take those off the pallet into my house, from my house into the basement, and from my basement into the crawl space. and I was out of breath at the end of that.
Oh, yeah, imagine.
Yeah, the whole storage aspect. I don't think people even realize how much we are a business of one in doing a lot of this stuff.
Yeah, inventory management is an element of crowdfunding and self-publishing that, again, we could go on for at length in another time. But again, that's another thing that we don't have to worry about or fixate on when we're getting to work on a project like Bat. And again, to me, that's another bonus in the plus column.
Yeah, I'll say even like, I switched to this mode. Like I was doing my own webcomic, The Hero Business, one-man show doing everything, did 3 Kickstarters that were really successful. It got picked up by a publisher. We did a whole compendium of it. So that was awesome. But it was like me doing everything, right? Coloring, lettering, writing, drawing, the whole thing. Then doing the stuff recently with like the Fortune and Glory book with Bendis and the Archie stuff and Bat and other stuff that I can't talk about yet. When I did the Flash Gordon adventure story, it was back to me writing and drawing. And I'm like, oh yeah, all these muscles. Like I'd kind of forgotten because I was in this penciling and inking mode for a few years. So going back to even, now I have to write and draw it. All those considerations you have for what's in the panels and, when does the gag hit and, how does this story end? It's got a good premise, but it's got to have a good stinger at the end. Otherwise, what are you doing? So,
Right.
And like the kids comics, they're like, 4 or 5 pagers. So you've got setup, development, escalation, payoff. Like that's like sort of the rhythm of, and again, Archie comics, it's like it's seared in my brain. All those short stories have like that certain rhythm to it. So it's almost like you're relearning things a little bit, or you're reflexing those muscles. Trevor probably knows what I'm talking about in terms of like whether you're working for a publisher, we're just writing stuff versus doing your own stuff where you're now the editor to your artist. You're now the fulfillment center for sending out your book. So yeah, we learn a lot of skills in this industry. I think being creators, we sure learn a lot of different things. That's for sure. Like DPI, for instance.
Yeah, you wear a lot of hats doing that, and then again, the opportunity to juggle multiple projects as well. I don't know about you, Bill. I call it weaponizing my ADD. I'm constantly sitting there trying to figure out what am I writing today, what do I feel like writing today, and what needs to get done by the end of the week. And that constant juggle allows me to sit there and basically work on. I think I'm doing 6 comics at the same time right now. Some of them are pitches. Some of them I know will not go to a publisher and I'm just going to crowdfund it myself. Some of them are artists that I have worked with before that we did a thing through like Webtoon or something else. And I was just like, I really want to work with them again on this project. And I don't care if a publisher picks it up or not. Like, I just want to do it again. I form bonds and friendships with the artists that I love to work with, and I will find reasons to work with them again or ways to work with them again if the feeling is mutual. So yeah, I love comics. If you can tell, I think Bat was a dream collaboration. And again, Bill was such an amazing collaborator to work with on this one. I'm excited to be doing more Bat with him, which I'm sure will be coming out before too long. And then who knows, maybe unrelated non-Bat related project.
Maybe we'll see what happens.
There are conversations.
So let me ask this. If you guys could take a big 2 character and kind of give him the all ages Bat treatment, who would you pick?
Big 2 character, huh? See, if you're going Bat, you got to go supernatural.
Sure.
And if I wanted to do some kind of funny, slapsticky, supernatural thing, I would have to go with either John Constantine or Zatanna.
Oh, man. Okay.
That's a good choice.
Those are very good choices.
Oh,
Yeah.
I know mine. Okay. I gotta think about it for a second. Blue Devil.
Ooh, okay. Yeah.
Because Blue Devil, the original concept about him being this weird guy in Hollywood, it had a lot of like humor and weirdness to it. it almost didn't fit into the DC universe. It almost like feels like it needs to be its own thing, which is why I feel like when you throw Blue Devil in Justice League, he kind of loses something, or when you throw him in a supernatural team, because I feel like Blue Devil, the concept is him and his girlfriend Sharon and that jerk actor, what's his name? Can't think of his name right now. The cameraman, they're all like a sitcom cast. So I would love to do Blue Devil like in my style and do it weirder, do like a very weird, more comedic take on it, and have him still fighting like weird monsters and creatures and aliens, which the original series did, but just sort of modernizing it and doing it in a new way, adding all the social media stuff that people deal with as being actors and people in Hollywood. I would have him like probably become a movie star, like an action movie star, much like like The Rock or somebody like that, and like deal with the fun Hollywood and satirical elements of that, along with the humor and the weirdness. So that would be my pick.
So kind of like the new stuff, but kind of mix it with how they kind of reimagined him in Underworld Unleashed, where he actually made the deal to
I felt like that took the character in this dark place, because that resulted in Marla dying, his producer. Like it just, and to me, like he never should get that dark. Like there could be dramatic moments, but I don't know, like those interpretations of Blue Devil, like personally didn't work for me, because I always felt like that original concept was so strong. And again, when you start putting him into Neuron in the Justice League, somehow he loses something in those translations to me.
Yeah. I mean, he did work really well in Shadow Pact, but
yeah, Shadow Pact was cool. Yep.
So, is there a certain character in Bat Pat that you have that you gravitated towards, or have a special place in your heart for, or like to write or draw? I know we probably asked you this, Bill, last time, but it's been a couple months.
I wonder if I'm going to give the same answer. I probably will. But it would be Leo. So Leo is the kind of more goofball character, having weird reactions to things. He buddies up with Bat Pat for a lot of the comedic moments. So my choice would be Leo.
Mm-hmm. No, that's good. I wasn't even thinking of the main cast when he asked that question.
Oh.
It's an open field, whoever.
I was thinking of the monsters. Because one of the reasons why I created Albert the Alien in the first place is because growing up at a time before nerd culture became pop culture like it is today, where you were ostracized for liking the X-Men because nobody knew what the hell that was, but frickin' you didn't watch the football game on Saturday, you're a nerd, right? I felt like an alien. And there was nobody there to kind of help me figure that out and navigate that. I had to figure that out on my own. I sympathize a lot and I identify a lot with the monsters in the Bat Pack that aren't trying to hurt anybody. They're not causing mischief on purpose, but they are by accident, and they're constantly misunderstood. And every time there's a new monster, right? Every episode, every chapter, there's a new monster that shows up in Bat Pat, and every single one of them hooks me on a visceral level in a way that I didn't think that these characters would. I'll give you an example, right? Like the first chapter of Bat Pat is about a witch that's dive bombing people in town, right? Like everyone thinks that the town is being attacked by or invaded by this witch who just keeps dive bombing them and being really, really mean. And so the kids are going to look for this witch and they're trying to figure out what's going on. And upon investigation, they find out that the witch isn't mean. The witch isn't trying to terrorize anybody. She's really bad at flying. And the kids have to figure out how to help her get better at flying. And again, those moments are not something that I've seen in any other property. Those moments are not something that I've seen in a lot of modern day kids storytelling, where you have these sympathetic antagonists. They're not villains, but there is an overarching problem for the protagonist and the antagonist to partner up on to solve together. So while yes, there are characters within the main cast that I love, and Leo's great. I probably identify with Martin, but I'm also a Leonardo. I'm the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles fan, so call me lame. Because bless Martin, because he's the skeptic, right? He's the smart one. He's the skeptic. He's like, there aren't ghosts, and I'm like, you have seen ghosts at this point, sir. You know that.
Don't Velma us. You've seen
Why
it.
do you keep saying not right? Like, I go that way with that character sometimes. And then Rebecca, the sister, is the outgoing one, right? Like, she's the one that's like, adventure, monsters, let's go, and she's out the door before anyone has a chance to object. I sympathize with the monsters.
Yeah, and I will say they do a really good job in the shows, the show to vary the monsters. So, no big spoilers, but like you get a witch, you get a mummy, you get a mysterious lady in a mirror, you get a werewolf. But they always have, and I'm not going to spoil them, there's always an interesting twist on it. Yep. So they almost take some of those classic monsters and classic ghost stories, but the issue that the monster has always is really creative, but also embedded in what that monster is. Mm-hmm. So I think kids will like kind of really thrill to discovering that because they've seen a mummy or a vampire or a werewolf. Like they kind of know what those things are, mm-hmm. but the way they are presented in these stories, I think will be a surprise to them, like, because kids, you have to keep in mind, they're new to a lot of different kinds of storytelling. Like we'll watch a show or a movie right now, and having watched hundreds of movies, we can predict a twist. Sometimes, we'll see it coming, we'll see it telegraphed. And kids are more guileless. Like they're not going to see those tells and those foreshadowing moments. So when they experience those things, it's going to be for the first time. Like, oh, like a twist, a plot twist, Like I remember the first time I saw like The Twilight Zone, and those twists at the end were like, whoa, like they just blew my mind. So I think like some of these little twists on the monsters and when they reveal themselves are going to just like really thrill kids and fuel their imaginations.
Yeah, 100%.
Awesome.
So what do you hope that readers, young and old, take away from reading at least volume 1 and subsequent volumes? Should
We'll buy all the volumes first and foremost.
Yes.
Get in your home, be they 10 or 50. So, no, I think what kids are really going to enjoy is the mystery, the adventure, the opportunity to explore your town through fresh eyes, right? Like those are some of the elements within Bat Pat that I really gravitated towards. And I think that the kids that I was talking to in Baltimore, at least at the show, really seemed to gravitate towards as well. And that sense of imagination, that sense of problem solving, and that sense of agency within your own story. Mm-hmm. None of the characters in this are passive passerbys in their own adventure. They are active participants within their adventure. And I like that these kids have responsibility. These kids have agency. These kids have action that they proactively do within this story. They're not just reacting to things that are happening.
I love it.
Yeah, I will say like everything Trevor said, and also not to like undersell the point that like these are really fun stories. Like the characters are fun, the jokes are funny, even the monsters are fun. So it's like, that feeling how it's fun to get scared when you're a kid and go through a haunted house and it's a safe place to be scared. I feel like that's what these books are. The extra icing on top for me though is that message of inclusion, that we shouldn't judge a book by its cover. If somebody looks like they're having a problem, get to know what that problem is. Don't terrorize them. Don't shun them. Instead, help them. So I think that's like such a great, awesome message that is part of the stories. But again, it's never preachy. It's always fun. It's always entertaining. But that message to me, I think, is just so important, especially now.
Sure, absolutely.
My kids in school I think they got this back in kindergarten, and they still do this now, even in 2nd and 3rd grade, is this concept of bucket filling. And I feel like there's a lot of bucket filling that goes on within Bat Pat, right? And so the question that always gets asked is, are the actions that you're taking right now filling somebody's bucket or emptying someone's bucket?
Oh.
And these kids in this story are bucket fillers. The monsters that they meet, they are filling their buckets. They feel full of love, full of inclusion, full of acceptance. And to Bill's point, right, like that is an important message, especially in today's day and age, and for kids of any age, to be able to have that among their peers and among their community.
Well, all right. I think that's an excellent message to go out on, actually, because we're at our hour. But thank you guys so much, Bill and Trevor, for stopping by tonight and talking about all things Bat Pat with us. Look, I can't wait to get my hands on it.
I am so proud of this dang book. And again, Bill, your artwork sings in this, sir.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you.
Most definitely. Well, guys, I know you can't announce your next project just yet, but where can we find you on social media for when you do?
Yeah, I am at Trevor A. Mueller, one word. So the name you're seeing on the screen with the letter A in the middle, no spaces. Trevor A. Mueller is me everywhere. Find me, follow me, friend me. Okay,
will do. How about you, Bill?
If you go to billwalko.com, you could find a lot of my artwork and my socials.
Sweet. I love it. All right. Chad, who do we have next week on the show?
We are off next week because it's Halloween. It's other things. But on November 6th, we will be back with Alex Segura.
Awesome.
Oh, Alex is
Can't wait
awesome.
to talk to Alex.
That's great.
Yeah.
So,
He has done a new book on looking at Daredevil, the character of Daredevil. We'll probably talk some Star Wars and talk to him about his books that he wrote, Secret Identity and what was it, Alter Ego.
Yes. Cannot wait. So that's in 2 weeks. Everybody out there, thank you for listening. Have a wonderful and safe Halloween, and get out there and support comics of all ages. Thank you so much, and until next time, remember what we always say, don't be a dick. Thank you. Have a good one.